Senator John Thune is taking part in those hearings in just 2 hours from now. He's ranking member of the Commerce Committee and chairman of the Senate Republican Conference. Good morning to you, Senator. I want to talk about immigration in just a moment, but I want to start with Takata, since that's what you're going to be focusing on this morning, and a new bill that you're going to be introducing relating to whistleblowers. When you think about the problems we've seen with Takata, and frankly with all of the automobile makers, we seem to hear about problem after problem after problem. Where is the regulation, and who do you fault? I mean, obviously the automobile companies, but why aren't we getting to this stuff earlier?
Well, good morning, guys. That's a really good question. I think one of the issues that we've had, at least for the past year, is we haven't had an administrator at NHTSA, the National Highway Safety Administration, and for 343 days we've been trying to get the president to appoint somebody to that position. But they're the oversight agency, and we need to make sure that they're doing their jobs. This most recent revelation and the deaths, terrible deaths and tragic injuries associated with the Takata Industries issue is another example of why we need to have that oversight. And the hearing today is about that particular issue. Of course, in the wake of General Motors recalling 30 million vehicles, and now this defective airbag actually affecting 10 auto manufacturers, 7 million vehicles. It's time for Congress to get more involved and more engaged. And the legislation that I've introduced would incentivize whistleblowers at the auto manufacturers to come forward. If they think that there's a violation or some defect that they can bring forward, and there's an ultimate settlement that comes from that, they would be able to receive part of that, up to 30% of it. So we think we've got to create better safeguards and try and prevent these things from happening, rather than doing the thing, assessing fines afterwards after it's too late and we've lost people or created serious bodily harm for people in this country.
Senator, besides whistleblowers, how do you incentivize companies to come forward? Because one of the things that we're learning is that companies are they're seeing what the cost of coming forward is.
Right, and I think that there's got to be some, when Mary Barra testified before the committee, she talked about creating, a culture of safety. And I think the auto manufacturers have got to get focused on that. And what we've got to start doing is intercepting this ahead of time. If they realize that these things are going to be caught ahead of time rather than after the fact, I think they're going to be a lot more incentivized to try and take steps earlier on to prevent these things from happening. So we've got to find a way to create intervention earlier on in this process before it gets to the point where you're actually having to go through recalls and fines and penalties and everything else.
Senator, I want to turn the conversation back to the issue of immigration that John Hardwood was talking about and what we're going to be hearing from the president tonight. I assume you are very much on the other side of it. The question is, what can you do about it?
Right. Well, I think that's a good question. I'm not sure anybody knows exactly what that answer is. Obviously, we disagree. And we disagree in a very aggressive way with what the president's trying to do here. If you think about it, he on 22 different occasions has said that he doesn't have the legal authority, he doesn't have the constitutional authority to do this. And one thing people forget, the president's been president for almost 6 years now. For 2 of those years, they had huge majorities in Congress. They had a supermajority in the United States Senate, a filibuster-proof majority, and a big majority in the House. They could have done anything they wanted to on immigration and didn't do it. And, so here he's now blaming Republicans for this and saying this is why he has to use this way of trying to get to his ultimate goal. But the American people disagree with that. They sent that message on Election Day. I think the president ought to work with a Congress instead of against the Congress, work with the people's representatives, and try and go about this in the right way. I think this is a big mistake, and it will make more difficult getting things done on other issues, not just immigration, as we go forward.
Senator, you just heard the NBC poll results, NBC News, Wall Street Journal poll results that found that nearly 75% of Americans are in favor of an eventual path for citizenship if it includes things like back pay of taxes, paying off of fines, and other things like that. Are you in favor of an eventual path to citizenship?
Well, look, the way that I've approached this issue, Becky, is we can't solve the legal immigration issue until we solve the illegal immigration issue. We've got to deal with border enforcement, interior exit, exterior, and then we've got to deal with E-Verify in the workplace and some things that we know we can fix. Until we do those things, I don't think we're going to have the confidence of the American people to deal with the people who are here illegally. But there is probably a way in which we can address people who are here in this country illegally. I frankly don't think that citizenship is the answer, but there's probably a way you could get legal status but the way to do it isn't
Right.
by executive action.
And
we need to
Sen-
do this through the Congress, through the political process that we have here.
Senator, real quick, business issue, HB1 visas, big issue, especially in Silicon Valley. We don't know what we're going to hear from the president tonight, though there is an expectation perhaps that there will be an inclusion related to that. Where do you stand on that issue?
Well, I think that's one of the things we can solve, and there's broad bipartisan agreement that we need to open that up. I think that, you know, merit-based, skill-based immigration and in opening up more opportunities for people in those particular industries is something I think there's broad agreement on. And I guess my point is, why don't we do those things? Let's do the things we can do, and then, you know, we can tackle the more difficult issues, but we're not going to have a lot of trust and confidence in the American people if we don't do the basic things that they expect us to do in the first place.
Okay, Senator John Thune of South Dakota, thank you for joining us, and good luck with the hearing a little later today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.